I figured I was already being used, so why not earn money from it? If you think about it, it kind of makes sense. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about something positive that I learned from my stormy past. So if you want to hear about that, keep on watching. First, I want to give a shout out to my very much appreciated Patreon members. I want to thank all of you guys over there for your support. And if you want to get to know me on a deeper level, definitely check out my Patreon. There's 3 different tiers that you can choose from and tons of exclusive content. So check it out, guys. First, let me start off by saying hello to my new microphone arm/mount. I started using this on my webcam shows and I got some really positive feedback on the increased audio quality. So let me know if you guys can tell a difference with the mic being closer to my mouth. I kind of like the way it looks and how it feels. It feels more like professional. So, I'm moving up in the world. But I want to start off by saying that this video was inspired by somebody who reached out to me on Instagram. Now, about a week ago, I got a couple messages from a guy that is around my age, and he was just asking me how I go about dating and how I go about having crushes on guys that are more like forbidden crushes, kind of like guys that you want really bad, but you know you can't have. And there were some other things along those lines that he mentioned and had questions about, but the biggest thing that stuck out to me was the forbidden crushes aspect. And I think a lot of us guys that are into guys can attest that we struggled with forbidden crushes throughout our whole lives. And I think it extends even into adulthood. I mean, naturally, you would think you don't stop having crushes after high school. So I want to get into that, and I want to get into why I stopped chasing men and what helped me to gain the confidence to stop chasing men. So when I first started exploring my attraction to guys, I went boy crazy. In some past videos, I've mixed it up a little bit. I've said, I started dating when I moved to Arizona, or I explored and experimented while I was still in high school. And the truth is, I didn't start exploring and really experimenting with guys until I was about to leave high school. So that's when I started to really come to terms with what I was feeling and who I was looking at in class and who I was having dreams about, if you know what I mean. And I never had any issue with meeting girls in high school. Literally, I had so many girlfriends around me all the time, to the point where I really just wanted more of a brotherhood and more of I just wanted more masculine energy around me, and it seemed like I couldn't get it. It almost seemed like guys were avoiding me, and I didn't know why. I didn't know what was wrong with me or what I was exuding to push guys away. So I always had this feeling ever since I was a little boy of just wanting bros, wanting that brotherhood. And I think that's what led me to a lot of experimentation. So I really started to go boy crazy once I moved to Arizona and I was on my own and out of my little hometown. I didn't have to worry about people outing me or finding out what I was doing or what I was into, anything like that. And it gave me a sense of security. So around this time, when I was a freshman in college, I spent so much time on the apps, and I honestly, to this day, I wish I could get a lot of that time back. It took a lot of my focus away from putting my energy and all of my effort into school and just getting more involved into school rather than trying to find friends or hookups or dates. So really quickly, I do want to say to any of you young guys out there watching this video, do not put your heart and soul into the apps. They are so meaningless, and in the grand scheme of things, in the grand scheme of life, that doesn't mean anything. And you can spend and get lost in so much of the back and forth banter and the waiting for the hot guy to respond to you and waiting for him to say what he thinks about your pictures that you just sent. Like, there's so much that goes into it that usually just amounts to nothing or disappointment. I was meeting new guys every week around this time, multiple guys sometimes, and I wasn't hooking up with each and every guy, but I was just longing for that brotherhood feeling. Like, I desired it so much that I was willing to just put myself in these dangerous situations to see what I could get out of it. Because in a way, I felt because I was new to the area, I didn't have any connections to the area, it gave me a sense of like freedom. I felt like I was untouchable, like nothing bad could happen to me, and it was a great feeling, but it started to catch up with me. So let me tell you how it started to catch up to me. I think the main reason I wanted to be around guys and just meet new guys is because all of my friends in Maryland were girls. Not all of them, but most of them were. I still had some friends, not really bros, but some guy friends that I would hang out with here and there. But I just really wanted bros, like a group of guys and buddies to just hang out with and go out to In and Out with, or go to a party with, or this, that, and the other. And that's just a struggle I've always encountered throughout my entire life. I just can't seem to be around or create that solid group of bro, like guy friends who just uplift each other and are there for each other and are just bros. So I finally started to get this feeling of brotherhood, if you will, once I met this guy on one of the apps and I actually moved in with him. And this was around the time I left college. But him and I would mess around together, but it was never anything romantic. It wasn't like we were boyfriends, but we were like roommates that just wanted to rub one off once in a while. That was starting to feel like the brotherhood in a weird way. I know it sounds crazy, but just the mere fact that we would go and get coffee in the mornings and he would like get me something when I went out of town and leave it on the counter when I got back, like a gift. Like, those little things really meant a lot to me. And just having somebody to talk to after a long day of school, because I was still going to school when I moved in with him. I would just drive to class every day. And it was just really nice having someone there, you know? I just really started to feel this connection with him, and it wasn't like I was in love with him or starting to fall for him. It just felt like, this is my bro. Like, I have his back, he has my back, I know he has my back. And it was just wonderful until it wasn't. So he actually showed me the webcamming industry, if you will, and he showed me all the ins and outs of it because he saw that I was struggling. And at the time, I was going to so many different job interviews, and I got a couple different job offers, but they were all so far away from where I was living, and it just seemed like not the right thing for me to do. So he actually showed me this webcamming site and showed me how to use it, because it's not easy to learn how to maneuver this site and actually start making money off of it. Once he showed me that, I was like, let's do it together. You know, it was partly his idea, but we started doing it together, and then I started to feel like a division form between us. And you guys know, when you start to mix money in with friendships, relationships, anything like that, there's always going to be something that comes up. And you never know how it's going to turn out. But it's usually not good. Someone usually gets the short end of the stick. So long story short, I found out that he was ripping me off. He was telling me that we were making this amount of money together when we were making 3 times that amount of money together. So he was giving me a very small amount of money when I should have been earning more from him. I found this out later, after some time had went by, and then I decided to start my own account so I could start webcamming alone. He did not like the fact that I created my own account. He felt like that was his thing. You know, he had control over that. And once he didn't have control over the webcamming thing and how much money I was making, it just started to make us separate further and further and further, to the point where we weren't even speaking to each other anymore. We were avoiding each other at all costs, and when we did speak to each other, it was really awkward and just a lot of resentment I felt on his end. I felt like he just wanted me to move out because, mind you guys, he had already lived in this apartment for, I think, a year, and then I moved in. I was still on the lease, but I moved into his... I don't want to go too far down on this tangent, but I will just say that once I created my own account, I started to lose that brotherhood feeling with him, and it made me really sad. So I started to just kind of avoid him and venture out and hang out with new people and start going on the apps again and, meeting new friends and just putting myself out there. And eventually I came to the conclusion that I really enjoyed the webcamming. Despite what people thought about it, I saw a bright future for me in webcamming. I knew that if I joined the adult entertainment industry or generated some kind of a following or reputation, it would increase my income on the webcamming job. I actually brought this up to him because I wanted him to do it with me, join a studio with me and kind of help us both at the same time. But he was not interested in that at all. He said he wanted a family and, he's not going to ruin his life. And mind you, he's from Arizona, so he has his whole life here, his family, everything. I didn't have any of that. So I felt like I needed to sacrifice to get to where I am now, basically. And it's true, that's what I needed to do. But it was definitely a hard pill to swallow at the time. So once I got into the industry, we were pretty much done. He wanted nothing to do with me. I felt like he was disgusted by me. I was disgusted by his behavior and how he treated me. So I moved out into a different living situation. And at this time, I was on to the next stage of my life. That was all history to me. While I was in the adult film industry, and mind you guys, I spent 5 years in the industry. I worked for numerous different studios that specialize in all different kinds of categories of videos. So I definitely saw the ins and outs of the industry. And I will go ahead and say that I saw the ins and outs of the LGBTQIA community. Literally everything behind the camera, behind the curtains, behind the closed doors. I experienced it all. And it was very intimidating, but it was also very educational and something that I needed to experience. I started hooking up with my dream guys, guys that I may have never hooked up with if I wasn't in that industry. And I also feel like in a way I needed that because I needed to realize that relationships, love, companionship is so much more than just surface level attraction. I've said this in a previous video of mine. Something I got out of a past relationship was that looks are not everything. And it is so cliche to say that, but people need to be reminded of that, especially in today's day and age where everything is so visual and just so in your face, especially with social media and the dating apps and just everything that we're constantly bombarded with. You don't get a lot of representation of unconventional relationships. For example, older and younger, or younger and younger that don't look like Instagram models, or anything for that matter. You just really don't get a lot of real life representation. You get a lot of idyllic representation. I'm going to go back to the point where I mentioned how I hooked up with my dream kinds of guys. I look back now, it's been a year now since I've done any adult videos for studios, but I look back now and I do have fond memories of a lot of my scenes and a lot of my work in the industry. There are a few moments where I just don't want to be reminded of them and I don't even want to think about them. I kind of want to set them over there. So one of the things I realized after all of these scenes and all of this hooking up with very attractive, top tier guys, visually attractive, I should say, hooking up is pointless and meaningless without a solid history of companionship or a relationship that's been built together over time. All of that means nothing. I mean, mind you, it's fun in the moment. It's fun in the moment. But then once you do it over and over and over and over again, in the same way that you might meet up with multiple different guys on these apps, once you do that over and over again, rather than trying to build a brotherhood or a relationship with this person, you start to look within and ask yourself, why am I doing this? And what's leading me to do this? And I found out exactly why I was doing that. Before I joined the industry, I would get so hurt after realizing that guys just wanted a quick fix with me, especially guys that I thought I really liked and enjoyed being around. For example, this guy took me out to a burger joint and we spent like all day together. I didn't have school this day. I was still living in my dorms, and this was before the roommate situation, all of that. And we just spent the day together. We walked around a park afterwards. It was like a legitimate date. And then we came back to my dorm and hooked up. And he even hung out after that. And we watched TV. And I was just talking to him like, I really like you. You know, I enjoyed our time together. I'd really like to see you again. And I started to feel him like push away. And it's just such a horrible feeling because I felt like I was pouring my heart out to him. And at the time, I didn't know that it was inappropriate. I felt like it was the right thing to do. Like, why wouldn't he agree with me? You know, it's obvious in his actions that he enjoys my company too. But I realized he just wanted a quick fix, and he probably didn't have anything else to do that day. So I knew it was my personal insecurities that caused that situation. I couldn't just be in the moment and enjoy the moment. I had to analyze it and, put my thoughts on the table. And that's not always the best thing to do. Sometimes it's best to just keep your thoughts to yourself and deal with them once he leaves. So he ended up leaving that day, and I thought after that time, like, what is wrong with me? What is wrong with me? Because that wasn't the first time something like that had happened. And it just seemed like it was this pattern that just kept repeating itself. And I wanted it to stop. And I will say that that pattern definitely stopped once I joined the industry. Once I stopped taking these casual encounters with such gravity and treating them with such importance, honestly, it was a sigh of relief. Deciding to commit myself to brotherhood or finding a brotherhood is one of the things that led me to the adult film industry. I figured I was already being used, so why not earn money from it? If you think about it, it kind of makes sense. The roommate who I was living with at the time and our tumultuous relationship definitely clouded my judgment. Definitely. I didn't really take into account how much this would affect me for the rest of my life. I didn't really imagine how many opportunities I would be left out of. I just kind of threw myself into it because I wanted to get out of that living situation with him, and I also wanted to see where webcamming could take me. Even though I had just left an amazing school, Arizona State University, an amazing professional flight program where I was going to become an airline pilot, this feeling that I was chasing after, this feeling of brotherhood or just being around masculine energy and having bros around me is something that separated me from finishing my degree and finishing school. It's like I chased after that instant gratification feeling rather than staying in school for the long run and then meeting somebody after that. It takes a lot for me to open up about this right now because this is something I've recently come to terms with, but you guys have to be really careful with which head you're thinking with. And it probably sounds funny, but it's so true because you can get yourself into some really dangerous situations when you're thinking with your crotch. And it's just, I'm very grateful that things came to terms in the way that they did, and I didn't have a huge earth rattling thing that happened that made me finally realize this, but that is the main reason that I don't chase men anymore, because I know my worth, and I feel at the same time that I've experienced everything there is to experience with being with another man. I've done it all, like literally done it all. It's fun, but it's not fun when you don't have a connection with the guy or whoever you're in bed with. After proving to myself that there's much more than attractive looks when it comes to finding a mate or finding a companion, once I proved that to myself, I stopped focusing so much on looks, because I realized that all of that is just surface level, and looks fade with time. I mean, everybody knows that. Granted, you might have a pretty face now, with whatever, but eventually you're going to lose hair, you're going to get wrinkles, you're not going to be young and sprung, and I think a lot of people fail to remember that. And it's easy to, because what we see online as 20-somethings and even teens, we're all just force-fed this cookie-cutter image of what you should look like to acquire the ideal life, when nothing that you're seeing is ideal. It's all just fake. It's all just set up and doctored. And I mean, just like my bedroom, well, that's a bad example, because I am a pretty tidy person. I like to keep my surfaces clean, but I do straighten out my bed a little bit before I film. I make sure my nightstands are clear. That's the same way that these people choose to portray themselves online. The people that you look up to and the people that you aspire to be. Nobody's perfect. Everybody's gone through these ups and downs, and everybody's, had to take a break while they're climbing up the mountain to assess some things and realize some things. But it's all about how you pick yourself up and keep moving and keep walking, crawling, whatever you have to do to get to the top. Another thing I really want to mention, I just saw it on my notes right here, is the fear of missing out is a huge thing that got me into a lot of trouble and led me down a lot of dead ends. I always had this fear of missing out on a fun time, a great hookup, meeting a hot person. Like, I always feared missing out on that opportunity. So I would take up doing these things that in the back of my mind, I knew they weren't right, and I knew I shouldn't have been doing them, but I felt at the same time like, oh, well, who knows what could happen? I could run into this person, or I could meet someone that does this, or who knows, because my life has always been like that. Like, my life has always been, I tell this to everybody in my life, but my life is a movie. It's sort of like the Truman Show. Like, these crazy things happen to me, and I'm just so bewildered sometimes. Like, where did that come from? How did I meet you? Because that's exactly what I needed in my life. It's like somebody just turned a switch on and made this great thing happen to me. I mean, just how I got into Arizona State. I didn't find out until April of 2016 that I got into Arizona State. And I wasn't really excited about college at the time, because I was going to go to West Virginia University, and I was just kind of, coasting. I felt like that wasn't my first pick of school, but I'm grateful at the same time to be going to school. And then, right up at the deadline pretty much, Arizona State sent me that email. I still remember this day. And I was so happy. I was jumping for joy. That's my dream school, my dream program. I didn't know how I was going to pay for it, but I knew I was going to go to Arizona. So I just think life is so magical and so colorful and so unpredictable, but at the same time, and also being a little bit more immature than I am now, I will say that the fear of missing out just led me down a lot of dark paths. And I think it's important for you out there, or whoever's watching this out there, to be cognizant of that and to know, like, am I thinking with the right head? Am I thinking with the right conscience right now? Because this could go left quick. And here's another tip that I said. I feel like I fully indulged myself in the gay world, and I saw everything there is that needed to be seen. Like, I don't even know to this day if I am fully gay. Like, I still am very attracted to girls, very attracted to attractive guys. I think I'm just attracted to attractive people, but at the same time, I know now that looks aren't everything. So at this point in my life, I don't chase after men anymore. I chase after deep, meaningful relationships and companionship with others, people that I can grow with, and people that I can share memories with, rather than just cheap short-term thrills, that are just meaningless in the grand scheme of things. The desire to grow up and look back at my life and realize and accept and understand the experiences that I went through is what drives me to succeed now at this point in my life. Because just as I was saying, I've gone through so many crazy experiences that I never thought I would, even when I was a senior in high school. We all have full circle moments once in a while, and I feel like, in a way, I manifested my time in the adult film industry, even at such a young age, because even at such a young age, I had that desire for, like, brotherhood and being around other guys. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure it all out, but I hope this video was helpful and informative to whoever's watching right now. And I just want to remind you guys to never let your short-term happiness determine your long-term success. Never do that, okay? Please let me know what you guys thought about this video. Thank you so much for watching. And don't chase men. Let them chase you, okay? Thanks, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.